Of course, the chief of police retired, the city clerk. We thought up until 2 days before, up until a few days before I took office, we thought the city clerk was going to stay, and that was going to help us do the transition. But we found out very late in the game, but right the weekend before we took office, that she had tendered her resignation, so she was going to be gone also.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jack and Terry Show. Our special guest today is Richard Ciresi. He is the newly elected mayor of historic West Point, Kentucky. He is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and he is a business owner. He owned his own business, an Air Serv HVAC franchise, for 45 years. Mayor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, our pleasure. And of course, I'm with my co-host, Jack Konecki, the granddaddy of all small businesses in Radcliffe. Jack, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Terry. Good to meet you, Richard.
And one of the interesting things about the mayor of West Point here, Jack, I ran into him not too long ago at another meeting. Fascinating situation over there. Then we, of course, read in the newspaper when he was elected to become the mayor. West Point, a small town, a historic town, has its fair share of challenges. And the newspaper had this mention about the city clerk. There were some irregularities there. I guess you could even go so far as to say there was criminal activity there. And the individual involved in embezzling money had to be incarcerated and was incarcerated and is incarcerated. So we wanted to just bring on the mayor today to talk a little bit about the challenges over there in West Point that he's faced with. But the first question always is the same. Mayor, what inspired you to run for mayor of West Point?
Well, I'll go back to that fool's rush in where wise men fear to tread, And as I've often said, I don't think anybody ever really wants to be the mayor of West Point, but somebody has to be. And honestly, I live in this community now, and I live on the river. And this community had so much potential that I felt was just being lost, and primarily due to leadership, or not even leadership, a vision of what the city should be, or could be, or can be, and all those things, and just the frustration of too many potholes and those kinds of things. One day you just decide that stop complaining and do something about it.
Right. I like that attitude, that approach. We've heard people say that before. There's almost always something that triggers a person to want to get into or to take action and get into politics. Here you were, a successful businessman, owned your own business for 45 years. I think you could have probably done that for a few more years, but instead you chose to be the mayor, took on a job that's a very tough job. Small town, but it has its fair share of challenges. What surprised you most when you got sworn in, you went into the office, you got the keys to the office? I'm sure you had a nice transition period. Okay, we didn't have a nice transition
period. It's a comedy show.
All right, no transition period. So you walked in, you got the keys. What surprised you most, Mayor?
Honestly, the condition of City Hall. I mean, it was unkempt. It was not in great condition. It was just. It was like I thought that it would have been left in better condition, and at least some basic instructions on what the important things that needed to be done, what order they should be in, something to that effect. Very blessed to be married to a wonderful woman who is a CPA and way smarter than I am, who has helped me navigate this.
That's good. So she's in there working with you every day, trying to get this straightened out.
She is.
Now, I read in the newspaper, they did an article on you, which I thought was well written. It talked about that you had some staffing issues also. Tell us a little bit about that. That's a kind way of saying it.
Well, it's the lack of staffing issues. You know, when everybody quits the day you start, first of all, it gives you a little bit of an inferiority complex because really, I mean, do I smell bad or what is it? But yeah, we left of course, the chief of police retired, the city clerk. We thought up until 2 days before, up until a few days before I took office, we thought the city clerk was going to stay, and that was going to help us do the transition. But we found out very late in the game, but right the weekend before we took office, that she had tendered her resignation, so she was going to be gone also. So, and then the gentleman that was running Public Works, he also decided to leave. So it was a new day. It was
wow, that's
starting all
fascinating.
over.
So I know you've already been working on filling those roles, but what challenges are you actually faced with right now that are the challenges that are closest to needing a solution? What are you actually dealing with over there?
The biggest one, my biggest concern right now is police.
Yes.
You know, we do have coverage from Hardin County and the state police, but because of where we are in you know, West Point, we're way, way north of the county. I mean, I keep telling people in Hardin County, I have to remind them that we're in Hardin County in many cases.
Right.
But we just have that's our biggest issue right now. And I'm trying to work with Radcliffe to maybe partner with them and share their resources, because I have not been able to put together a police force. Finding policemen in today's market, particularly with our budget. I mean, we've had our share of financial challenges, and it's light as our budget is, it's very difficult to get someone to come here and be the chief of police and probably make less than he could make as a regular officer anyplace else.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough spot, since when you look at local government, primary purpose of local government is public safety. That's the highest priority. Public works, then public administration. Are there any other big challenges that you feel like you're faced with over there in West Point?
Well, we leased the school from Hardin, the old school building that closed. We leased them. We have a lease with them that's very favorable for the city. It's incremental. We take more and more responsibility for it as the lease goes on. But we're trying to fill that space. We're trying to rent enough of that space to outside entities to help defray the cost of its operation. It's a big building, utilities, maintenance, upkeep, so on and so forth. So that's one of my big focus. And then from there, development. Already working with a couple of different developers. We have the city owns a 58-acre parcel. We have another 80 acres that we're working with the owner to get it developed. We have another parcel that's probably going to come up on the market. So West Point, we need to increase the population. Long story short, I mean, if we're going to be a viable city, it's hard to do that when you're barely 1,000 people. We've got a lot of good things going, though. We're in the process of we're selling our water and sewer operation to Hardin County number 1, which is going to, first of all, it's going to take a big burden off the city, and it's going to be better for the citizens because they're going to get a better product. They're going to get better service. More, with all the new compliance issues with water and sewer, it's very difficult for a town our size to have the people that could do that. So once that gets off our plate, and that will generate a little income. Right now, we barely have money to do matching grants or any of those kinds of things. So that little bit of income, that additional money will help us move in that direction. So there's a lot of good things happening. We're the convergence of 3 national trails. Most people in Hardin County don't know that, but we are the end of the Ohio River Way, if you're familiar with that. That's a big deal from Portsmouth, Ohio to West Point. We're the end. We're going to be the trailhead for the new John Muir Trail, which will go from here to the Gulf. We got the Sam Pierman Trail. We got the and then Lewis and Clark. We're on the Lewis and Clark National Trail. So the goal is to take these trails and build recreation. We don't have enough ground to really bring in a lot of industry. We could bring in some retail, but to use tourism as our basis for our economy and repopulate the city.
West Point's been something I've been not closely familiar with, but aware of. I lived in Muldrow for a while, and my dad's family originated in Muldrow. And I was just thinking that there's every possibility that this 1937 flood had something to do with me being born, because it falls real close in there when you had the flood in West Point, and my mother and dad were living in Muldrow at the time, and they may have, I don't know, run out of things to do.
Okay.
Who knows?
That could have happened.
There's a lot to do here, particularly if you're in the outdoor things, hiking, biking, trails, those kinds of things. We got a new boat ramp coming at the end of the year, so we're going to be a lot more accessible to the river. So people just come to visit us, and I'm really looking forward to being able to hopefully manage the transition between a town that is in somewhat of a degrading situation to something that's back on the rise and increasing.
Right. Folks, that was Richard Ciresi. He is the newly elected mayor of historic West Point, Kentucky. He's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, business owner for 45 years. He just sold his business the day he got inaugurated, I guess you would say, or sworn in as the mayor of West Point, Kentucky. Mayor, thanks again for coming on.
I appreciate the time and the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Jack, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
You too, Terry. Thank you so much, Mr. Mary.
Thank you. Take care.